Okay, the time is 6 o'clock. And this is a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for the city of Glenwood Springs. It's our regular meeting for the month of January, January 23rd, 2024. And it is a meeting being held in person as well as via Zoom. And that phone number, the passcode for the Zoom is 177-366 and telephone number 1-719-359-4580. And I will ask for a motion to seat alternate John Houghton. Okay,
I will second that. They're still red.
why are they not? There, Pete, you're
I
good.
will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we'll have a voice vote on that. All in favor, aye, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, welcome, John. And congratulations on your reappointment as an alternate, and to Joy for her reappointment as a commissioner, and to Gregory as his appointment to the commission. Any conflicts? Oh, we'll ask for the roll call, please.
Good evening, commissioners.
I'll actually take this time to introduce you to Jose, who is our new building permit technician. And this is his first time at the seat, so be nice to him this evening.
Welcome, Jose.
Commissioner Han,
Here.
Commissioner Connerton,
Here.
Chair Shaver,
Here.
Commissioner Waller,
Here.
Commissioner Sims,
Here.
Commissioner Sipperly.
Okay, are there any conflicts of interest on any of the items on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we will go on to receive the minutes from December 12th, 2023. Why am I not doing this right?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from December 12th, 2023.
And I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion to receive those minutes by Commissioner Waller and a second by Commissioner Sipperly. Any discussion, corrections, deletions?
There are at least two names misspelled in the also present department, but I see no errors in what actually happened at the meeting. That'll be Ashley Dostal, the assistant engineer, and Carl Hanlon. That's all from me.
Okay. Well, we'll call for a voice vote on that. All in favor of those, the motion to accept those minutes, say aye.
Aye.
And I will abstain. I was not at that meeting. Okay, at this point, we're on item number 5, and which is comments from citizens appearing for items that are not on the agenda. I don't see any hands raised online and no one here, so we'll close the public comment period and move on to new items, which the first is planning file 6923, special use permit, 818 Colorado Avenue. And this is, the staff is recommending approval of this special use permit. And we have Emery here tonight to present this to us.
Okay, this is Emery Ellingson, Community Development Department, presenting on Planning File 6923, 818 Colorado Special Use Permit, and I will be sharing my screen. Okay, so today we are reviewing a special use permit for 818 Colorado. The applicant is Balcom and Green Law Office, and the request is consideration of a special use permit to allow a non-approved use to expand on the ground floor within a building within the downtown commercial overlay district. And so I'll get into more what that means and what we're all looking at. And so again, properties at 818 Colorado, M2 mixed use zoning district. It's within the downtown overlay. Neighboring uses, you have surface parking to the north, surface parking to the south. You go across the street, office space, post office, and then to the east, you have basically the backside of all the mixed use buildings on Grand Avenue. So the property is 17,500 square feet, and it's all owned again by 818 Colorado LLC. And so again, what is being considered is a special use permit. Staff recommends approval of the special use permit with the findings and conditions on pages 4 and 5 of the staff report. And as far as actions for Planning and Zoning Commission to consider, approve the special use permit with conditions, deny the special use permit, or continue the item with a request for specific information needed to make a decision. So first off, just what is a special use permit? And so special use permits, anytime you have a use, it can be allowed by right, which would just be reviewed administratively, cannot be allowed, which means the person could not do that. And then you have a special use permit. And so that's a special review process. And the purpose is just to evaluate proposed development, taking into context, what will the impact be? What's the intensity of the use? Basically a case-by-case basis. And so other examples in code, I just pulled these two out. So a restaurant with a drive-through, that would require a special use permit in certain zones. It'd be prohibited in others. On the residential side, a duplex, that requires a special use permit in some zoning districts. It's by right in others. And so again, what we're looking at tonight is a special use permit. And there's criteria for that. And this is a little bit different than a variance. You know, when we talk about variances, it doesn't meet all 7. This is a little bit more Planning and Zoning Commission looking at these criteria and weighing what the impacts are, that's compatible with surrounding use, how it meets code standards, does it conform with comprehensive plan, and then again, just looking at adverse impacts to the immediate neighborhood. So that's the special use permit part of it. So what is being requested is, so this is the current use of the ground floor at 818 Colorado. This would be the sidewalk and then Colorado Avenue. So as you walk into the building, most of the ground floor is used by Balcom Green, a legal office. There are 2 suites here, which Balcom and Green lease to other office uses. And so those 2 spaces, this is how the building functions right now. And this next page, this is what Balcom and Green would like to do. When those leases for those other 2 office uses expire, Balcom and Green would like to use this, and then the whole ground floor would be used as legal office, which is an allowed use in the M2 mixed use zoning district. Now the reason this is a special use permit is because there is an overlay district. So that's just, if you think of just another type of zoning district with even more specific regulations. And this was recently approved by City Council. So this is the first instance of Planning and Zoning Commission hearing a special use permit for this. And so within the overlay district, and I have a map here in a second so you can see those boundaries, the only approved uses on the ground floor are retail, food and beverage establishments, indoor recreation, and then personal services, specifically barber, beauty shop, shoe repair, spas, and massage. So anything else that would normally be allowed in the M2 zoning district has to come for a special use permit. So again, these are some examples in the use table. So for example, a laundromat, typically that would be allowed in the M2 mixed use zoning district, but if you were within the overlay district, you would need a special use permit. And so similarly, an office use is not immediately approved use within that overlay district. So for some context, yellow dotted line, that's the M2 mixed use zoning district. And so we have all the other different zoning districts in town. It's typically how we look at things. And then on top of that, you have the overlay district. So anything in green is where, okay, if it's not on that shorter approved list for the overlay district, it needs a special use permit. And then you have the subject property kind of white, gray hashed for 818 Colorado. So that's, you have the zoning district and then the overlay district. And just a little background. So the overlay district, it started in 2021 from Planning and Zoning Commission, kind of initiated the idea. The idea is having specified uses in the downtown to encourage pedestrian engagement, kind of a sense of vibrancy. So that's where it started. City Council had some work sessions in 2022. There were some public outreach events held in 2023. And then in October, City Council passed the overlay district. So again, back to what we're considering. So the special use permit criteria, these are the 6. I'm gonna just go through how staff viewed each one of these. So use compatible with surrounding area. Within the immediate vicinity of the building, there are 3 other buildings where there's ground floor office use. Those are just existing, but again, it's compatible with what's there. The impacts of the use are adequately minimized. So there's no real change in use, just change in tenant, and there's no exterior changes to the building. The use will be consistent with general purpose and intent of the code. So office use is generally allowed in the M2 mixed use district. And then the downtown overlay allows for reviews of other uses through the special use permit process, which is why we're here tonight. The use will be consistent with general purpose and intent of the code. Again, it's an allowed use in the zoning district. The overlay district requires a special use permit process. 5, so this is where, so the comprehensive plan, in the comprehensive plan, it states prioritize downtown development to include retail space at the ground level. So this building currently doesn't have any retail at the ground level. It exists as an office use. And so this part is where staff found it doesn't conform with the comprehensive plan. Another plan that the city has is the downtown plan. Which it was done in 1998, but it calls for maintaining retail function of downtown while accommodating additional office development in appropriate locations and at an appropriate scale. And so staff found office use in an existing office building for 2 spaces that aren't actually adjacent to the street would be an appropriate location and an appropriate scale. And then 6, the use minimizes adverse impacts to health, safety, and welfare. And the proposed use would not adversely impact any of that. The building is already an existing office use. No additional comments were submitted by any reviewing agencies, so Public Works, Engineering, Fire. No public comment was received. So again, the action item is to consider the special use permit. Staff has recommended approval with findings and conditions on pages 4 and 5 of the staff report. So here are the suggested conditions, and I just wanted to clarify a couple items. So this special use permit, if it were approved, would only apply to the specific units vacated by Colorado River Engineering and Lyons Gaddis. So if in the future a different non-approved use was to be leased out on the ground floor other than Balcom and Green, it would still require a special use permit to come back. Any change in business use from the existing office would trigger reconsideration of a special use permit. So if a different office use other than the legal office bought the building and wanted to go on the ground floor, they would also need a special use permit. And again, this all relates back to the overlay district. And then also number 5, so this condition is that the special use permit shall expire if the authorized use of the legal office is not underway within a year after date of approval. So if Balcom and Green was not in both of those offices within a year of today, this special use permit would expire. So those are the suggested conditions, which Planning and Zoning Commission can also consider. So again, staff recommendation was for approval with the following options for actions tonight. And then as a reminder, if Planning and Zoning Commission finds to move to deny the finding, you will need to use the alternative motions found in the staff report and then provide reasoning why you find that. So, yeah. So I will stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Emery. Any questions for Emery? I had a question. How are these units being identified? I mean, if these two are getting the special use permit, but any others that have a change. So how are they being identified? Is there a unit number within the office or?
As far as unit numbers, maybe the applicant can provide some information on that during their presentation. The way it would get identified to be brought into the special use process is a new business license. So if there was a new business relocating there, they would submit a business license to the city with that address, which would call attention to it. Does that answer your question?
Well,
Or
I
you're
was
talking
just
about
wondering
other-
how it would be separated from the, because it's applying to just these two spaces, wondering how it's going to be separated from any other spaces within their office complex.
I mean, based on, I'm not sure. Do these have individual unit numbers?
They don't have individual unit numbers, but they're the only two outside spaces that have outdoor access from the ground floor. They function
Oh,
as-
sorry. Oh, sorry.
Chair Shaver, I'm guessing your question is about how we enforce this going forward or how it's identified for staff
Right,
purposes?
yes,
And I think we'll obviously have this as a special use permit file that identifies those areas that we pull up when we review. So it will show the existing legal Balcom Green use and then the areas that they've expanded into. So then we will count that entire area going forward as the Balcom Green legal office for purposes of applying the downtown design overlay.
okay. Now, it's my understanding that a typical special use permit is valid for 3 years, but you're overlaying onto that a 1-year stipulation. Is that am I understanding that correctly?
Correct. And the idea with that was in this case, and this was a suggested condition, a lot of times special use permits will be for building something or constructing something. And so that 3 years, by the time they get approval, maybe build something, finish it, it gives them time. In this case, nothing new is being built. It's an existing
Right,
building. So
okay.
that was the idea, was just to have it not out with the approval without it being completed.
Right.
So that's something to consider, the timeline.
I would assume that they're going to want to move forward with it anyway, regardless, but. Okay, any other? Okay. Commissioner Connaughton.
Oh, you asked the question. I was gonna ask the same thing, but just to clarify, so if, if they come back ever, can they say, oh, we want to do 75% of this building like this? I guess, because I'm kind of thinking a little bit like, Commissioner Shaver, just about, if it's just the two spaces that we're giving this special use permit for, right? Just those two spaces, if they do anything else within their building, they still have to get a special use permit?
So here, I brought up the floor plan again.
Yeah,
So
That's
these are
helpful.
the 2 units which are under consideration for the special use permit and would be, documented in the approval with this plan. And then let's say in a year, this office space in the upper left-hand corner, a psychologist wants to lease that space from
Mhm.
Balcom Green. That person would need a special use permit
Okay,
for just that specific office space. And then the way that would be triggered that person would apply for a business license.
okay,
So-
that makes sense.
Commissioner Young.
I guess talking about the scenario you just described, a new business does not need a special use permit, correct? It's an existing business that's expanding.
So a new business that's not one of here, we'll go back. So a new business that's not an approved use within the overlay district. So so for example, like a psychologist, normally that's allowed in the M2 zoning district, but because it's not one of the approved uses within the overlay, it's a new business, it needs a special use permit.
All right, thank you.
If in that space, an ice cream parlor wanted to open in that small little space, that would not need a special use permit. So.
All right, thank you.
Okay, would the applicant care to come forward and present to the commission? Please state your name for the record.
My name is Ryan Scheit. I'm an attorney for 818 Colorado LLC, and I'm here with Mr. Chris Geiger and Miss Sarah Dunn, who are members of 818 Colorado LLC. I appear before you tonight on behalf of 818 Colorado LLC in support of the special use permit application planning file number 6923. For almost 40 years, until 2022, 818 Colorado Avenue's ground floor has been occupied solely by Balcom and Green. In the second half of 2021, Balcom and Green lost 6 attorneys and 3 support staff through a combination of resignations and death, leaving it with significant extra space. In May of 2022, Balcom and Green relinquished and 818 Colorado leased what is described here as Suite 1 to an engineering firm and Suite 2 to another law firm until Balcom and Green could restaff. In 2023, Balcom and Green hired 5 new attorneys with the expectation of reoccupying Suite 2 when that lease expired on November 30th. On November 5th, 2023, ordinance number 239 went into effect, taking away 33 permitted general M2 zone uses and converting the existing ground floor businesses of 818 Colorado Avenue to legal non-conforming uses. While this ordinance allows 818 Colorado Avenue LLC to replace a non-conforming tenant with a new non-conforming tenant, it prohibits 818 Colorado from allowing its existing tenant, Balcom and Green, to reoccupy Suites 1 or 2 without the special use permit for you tonight. We appreciate that the ordinance provides the special use process to permit an existing non-conforming tenant to grow and recover space within an existing building. But it is important to recognize the expense this process entails. 818 Colorado LLC does not get free legal service from Balcom and Green. And, I've advised my clients over here that the IRS would frown on something like this. And 818 Colorado's expenses for attorney fees and publication costs in this process is the equivalent of several months' rent for Suites 1 and 2. My client appreciates the staff's thorough report and largely supports its recommendations. 818 Colorado Avenue is in a neighborhood that currently and historically consists primarily of professional and government offices and businesses. Therefore, as staff notes, letting Balcom and Green reoccupy these suites is compatible with and will have no impact on the surrounding areas. Approval of this special use permit is particularly appropriate for the offices in question. These spaces are 200 square feet or less and lack the amenities essential to the uses promoted by the DDO, such as water, natural gas, and internal restrooms. These basic offices are not street facing or even easily visible from the street, and thus do not offer opportunities for pedestrian engagement and vibrancy emphasized as fundamental purposes of the DDO. Given that these suites are not suitable for the stated preferred uses, allowing Balcom and Green to reoccupy them will not frustrate the goals the DDO seeks to advance. This permit application complies with intent, purpose, and standard of this code. While not in direct conformance with Goal 2.1A of the updated comprehensive plan, the request use aligns with the 1998 downtown plan and advances other goals, including community resilience in response to economic events by ensuring steady local wage spending, retaining Glenwood Springs' role as a regional employment and commercial hub by allowing the growth of a local law firm to meet the legal needs of the community, and preserving Glenwood's character while increasing commercial success by allowing Balcom and Green's expansion into its historically occupied offices. Finally, staff notes the requested use will not adversely impact the health, safety, and welfare of the inhabitants of the surrounding areas in the city. We are in full agreement with the staff's finding in these regards. We request, however, that condition 5, limiting the special use permit to 1 year, not be included as a condition of approval. City code states that a special use permit shall expire if the authorized use is not substantially underway within 3 years after the date of approval. It also notes that conditions upon approval must be related to the anticipated impacts of the proposed use. Given that there are no anticipated impacts of concern to staff, and for other reasons explained below, my client requests the permit extend for the full 3 years. Suite 1 is currently leased to Colorado River Engineering until December 31st, 2024. Colorado River Engineering has conditional options, however, to renew its lease for additional 1-year terms. Extending this permit for the specified 3 years will provide 818 Colorado LLC with the greatest opportunity to meet the needs of both existing tenants, allowing Colorado River Engineer to extend its lease while providing Balcom and Green assurances that the space can be available on a predictable basis as it continues its regrowth. This approach will also avoid expenditure of additional public and private time and resources that are likely to result if my client is required to apply annually for this approval. As the staff report confirms, this permit request poses no negative impacts to the health, safety, and welfare of the surrounding areas. We respectfully request the approval of this special use permit as recommended by the staff, but for the full 3 years provided under city code. Thank you, and I open up for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions up here? I see none.
Perfect.
Thank you. So I'll bring it back to the commission and entertain a motion on planning file 6923. Amy, please.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the special use permit to allow non-approved use to expand on the ground floor of the said building within the downtown overlay as described in section 070 .020.180. And also with the suggested findings and the suggested conditions 1 through 4. And I do agree that extending it to 3 years for number 5 would be my recommendation.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve with that one change on condition number 5. Any further comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this as is an action item, we do need to open it to public comment. So if the Commissioner Connerton and Commissioner Waller wouldn't mind withdrawing the motion.
Thank you. Yes.
I withdraw my motion till further review. Sorry, George.
And I withdraw mine.
Okay, thank you for correcting my oversight. It's been since November since I did this. I'm totally out of practice. Okay, so we will now open the floor to any public comments on this action item. And I see none, so we will close the public comment period and return to where we were before.
I move to approve the special use permit to allow a non-approved use to expand on the ground floor of the said building within the downtown overlay as described in section 070 .020.180 with the suggested findings on page 4 and the suggested conditions 1 through 4. However, extending the 3-year permit use or life permit something, but yes.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. And I'm seeing No lights on, so I will call the question.
The motion has passed as unanimous.
Sorry.
Okay. Congratulations. Please move forward. You should.
Even though I'm not a
Okay, moving on to new item 6B. Planning file 0623, a variance for to be determined County Road 135. And this is a variance request for setbacks, and again, staff is recommending approval, and Jim Hardcastle is here to present this item to us.
Thank you. Give me a moment to share the screen if you would. Good evening. Thanks for being here. This planning file 0623 is a variance request as per code section 7020-190 for double lot frontages. The lot in question is in West Glenwood. It's approximately 18,000 square feet. It is abutted by 3 different street frontages, one State Highway 6 and 24, one County Road 135, and the third additional being a private drive. The site also in question is in the M1 multi-use district, where a number of transitional uses are allowed, from commercial to higher density housing. As you can see from this layout here, we have 2 commercial uses, the Honda dealership and Discount Tire, which are adjacent, and 2 existing multifamily housing developments, one directly to the north and one just off to the northeast there. The applicant has previously submitted an administrative site architectural plan, which was heard in front of the departmental review meeting team on November 7th, 2023, and at that time met all site standard condition requirements other than what's being heard this evening, and that is the double frontage lot requirement, which they could not meet. Per code section 706070, the planning of the municipal code, Planning and Zoning Commission is responsible for reviewing and approving all variance requests. The action item variance request in front of you this evening is to allow an increased maximum front yard setback of 45 feet from the 25-foot required by code for double frontage lots. Staff recommends approval of this variance request with the findings on page 8 of the staff report and at the end of this presentation. I'll direct your attention to the left side diagram, the strict application of code, which highlights the standard requirements for setbacks that exist today. On the west, which is County Road 135, and the access frontage for this development, and where it's addressed is applied the main front setback, which in this case has a minimum of 5 foot and a maximum of 25 foot. Due to the double lot frontage requirement, It is also required on the back opposite side, which it also is a frontage, the private drive, meaning that you can see right here where the building is touching the gray area over here and is also required to have a foothold in this area as well. The corner requirement of the code indicates that the leftover from the frontage shall be a side 5-foot minimum along 6 and 24, and a standard side 5-foot minimum setback is applied to the north. As you can see on the right side proposed layout, the applicant is asking for within this variance request to extend a greater than required setback of 25 to 45, which would give you the layout that you see right here. There are 7 criteria for approval which must be met, and staff finds that the application meets those 7 criteria. The subject property has an exceptional site condition of 3 side street frontages, which is not necessarily a general condition throughout this zone district or in Glenwood Springs. The strict application of the code standards for which a variance is sought would produce an undue hardship in the form of a larger building required to be built. The applicant did not create the hardship in that they did not create the lot or the 3 streets. The variance requested does not harm the public good and does not impair the intent or purposes of this code, goals, and policies, including the specific regulation for which the variance is sought, the greater front maximum setback. The variance request demonstrates exceptional hardship not related to purposes of convenience or financial burden, but due to the functionality of the lot. The variance request will not violate building or fire code requirements, and the variance is the minimum variance that will afford relief of the subject standards of the code. No comments were received by reviewing agencies. No public comment was received. In summary, the action item variance request to allow an increased maximum front yard setback of 45 feet from 25 feet required by the code section concerning double frontage lots, which staff recommends approval of with the findings on page 8 of the staff report and also seen at the bottom of this slide. Planning and Zoning Commission may approve with conditions or deny the variance or continue the hearing. Thank you for being here, and I can take any questions that you might have at this time.
Okay, thanks, Jim. And looks like Pete has some questions.
Yeah, I mean, you stated up front that when they presented in November that this was the only variance, so that means parking, landscaping, everything else is all per code. Is that right?
As presented at the time, yes, and any other things that were discussed at that meeting that needed to be amended for a subsequent or later submittal as we move closer to an administrative approval would need to be adhered to. And at that point, nothing else stood out.
So is that one of the and I didn't read through the findings, but I'm assuming that that's a finding that whatever's done is everything else is per code, blah, blah, blah.
Well, so good question. That would be actually applied to the administrative architectural site plan, which can't move forward unless this variance is approved.
Okay. Okay, and then just kind of a general question, it doesn't even matter, except I'm interested, so maybe it's for the applicant, but is that, so what is the crosshatch that's down along 6 and 24? What is that? Is that a? Yeah, the little squares. Should I save that for the applicant?
No, I can answer it. Yeah,
Okay.
it's necessarily open space connected with drainage also.
So it's like a landscaped area with a detention pond and all that kind of stuff. Okay, thanks.
John, please.
Where requirements of the code conflict, how do you determine which one applies? Because to me, it seems as if the double frontage lots and the corner lots requirements conflict? How do you determine which requirement applies?
Well, they don't necessarily conflict in that once the front is established, and that is where it's addressed, then you can determine the side as per the corner section of the code as the resulting corner street frontage. That one gets a side setback, even though we're along 6 and 24 here. The frontage only seems to apply in the code to, it says all, but it's talking about double frontages, so it would seem that we're talking about two.
Okay. Clear as mud. Thank you.
I would just add that it's a general legal principle that you try to harmonize statutes, codes, and not have provisions conflict. So I'd say what staff has done here is the intent is to harmonize the code to make it work, so you don't have, an argument that there's conflict.
The private drive is that treated like another street?
It is within the engineering standards. It's identified as a street as you go from the point on the boundary of property at the southeast to the northeast. It's identified as a street regardless of it being public or not, as far as I know. If Richard sees something else.
No, yeah, I mean, I think if, for example, if another lot on that street were to develop, that, that would necessarily be a street. If there was a parcel coming in for an application and looking at the setbacks, like that street would be considered a street.
Okay.
As a clarification, in our definition section in code, street means many things, including this private area. So
Okay.
staff did find that it meets the definition of street in the municipal code, as well as what's outlined in the engineering standards.
Thank you. Pete.
So when we approved that lot, that project to the north, that this, I mean, to me, it seems like it flows great. But we approved that, or part of their plan was that shared access drive at that time.
That is a function of what we're discussing within the administrative architectural site plan.
So-
But not part of what it is that we're collecting and discussing with the variance this evening.
So, and is they're building that 13 unit, because I know that's being built now. I don't know if it's done pretty close, it looks like to me, but is that entryway already done? Is that already built?
This one right here,
The one, no, the access off of that, whatever that side road is, County Road 135. Is the access into the property, is that already built?
it is already built and there is an agreement for a shared access.
Okay, that was my question. Thanks.
Okay, seeing no further questions up here, would the applicant care to come forward and present?
No, Brad Jordan, PO Box 1031, Glenwood Springs, Colorado, representing the client, and my company is Jordan Architecture. I think Jim pretty much covered quite a bit of what's going on here. I was also involved with the 13 units to the north, so it is a shared access. The access is there. We cannot put another access, nor do we want to put another access on County Road 135. It gets too close to Highway 6. That was something that we did look at, talk to staff about. We also spent some time with city engineering staff to look at what we were proposing and to see if there were other alternatives to not request a variance. One of those alternatives would be that we would push the building closer to Highway 6, hence I-70, more noise. And we would end up with a sea of parking on the north side of this development and the south side of the 13 unit development. And that lot is sloped, so it really doesn't make a great deal of sense, whereas with what we're proposing, we have access to the upper units from the north side. And we have access to the southerly units or the lower units on the south side. And for the ease of access, people can park in front of their units and walk straight in. If we were required to have parking on the north side, people would have to walk all the way down and around to walk into the lower level. So there was some design parameters that we were looking at to make this feasible and make it appear to where it would work. One of the other reasons for where we put the access, and the reason that we need the variance is due to engineering standards. We have a turning radius we have to deal with. We have a width of the access way that we've got to deal with. So those are some of the requirements that we have to meet as well, so people can get in and out safely. We could, if we really wanted to, we could stretch this thing out and probably put it into 12 units, but that wasn't the idea. We want something that looks nice. And that lower area that Mr. Waller was questioning, that is a detention pond area or water runoff. There is a pipe that goes underneath the road that would be the southwest corner. So the water runoff coming down from the 13 unit development and this site is all contained on those into that space. We have engineering drawings that support that as well. This is the only variance we're asking for. We meet the parking requirements. We meet the landscape requirements. I've already done a landscape plan as well. Everything has been submitted. So the city has everything. In fact, we're anticipating that, we would get this variance, and we're already pushing forward with the drawings to try and still break ground this spring is the goal. I think that's all I have. Like I said, Mr. Hardcastle did a good job of doing the presentation, and we've been working very closely with the city for the last 6 months or so. So I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
So. What's that? At this point, we will at this time open up the floor for any public comment on this variance application. And I see none here and none online, so we'll close the public comment period and bring it back to the commission for a motion on this item. Amy.
Well,
Hmm?
yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance request to allow increased maximum front yard setback of 45 feet from 25 by code section 070.020.190 for double frontage lots, with the staff recommendations found on page 8. Or actually suggested findings, excuse me.
Okay. Carolyn.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second to do the same. Comments? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
The motion has passed unanimously.
Okay, great. Congratulations. Good luck on the rest of the project. Okay. We are now on to. Thank you very much. Thank you. Commissioner comments. John.
None for me.
Amy.
I just want to thank staff for doing such a great job with the packet because it just, now that, you start to dive in, it just makes it so much easier when you're trying to like go through different points and everything. And then the presentations always really help. So I just wanted to thank everyone. It's really great. And welcome back, Commissioner Shaver.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's short lived. Pete?
So what was the status of in city council? I heard that the Benedict project got approved, so was that a smooth sailing, tumultuous? What was that?
I
Can I
wouldn't
ask
call
that?
it either of those things, but yes, the Benedict Senior Housing LIHTC project that you guys reviewed and recommended approval on was approved by City Council last Thursday. So now they will move forward with the next steps, which includes final plans, development agreements, and eventually a building permit to see that come out of the ground. So
Good.
thank you for your work on that.
Good.
Cool.
Yeah.
I won't be here in February. Just telling you that now. And George, is this your last meeting?
I believe it is.
George has done a heck of a job, so
Moving on to greener pastures.
here's a toast to George.
Oh, thank you.
With my
Thank you.
LaCroix, too bad it's not a better drink. Exactly. So good job, George.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Wait, where are you going?
Skiing.
Vietnam.
Vietnam.
Back to
You just got
Vietnam.
back?
Yeah. Carolyn?
Well, thanks, George. You have been such a mentor. I mean, I didn't know what the heck was going on when I first sat up here, and you and all the previous P and Z members were thoughtfully coaching and sort of whispering as to how this whole thing runs. Since then, I see we've come up with new procedures to sort of give a little more training, but I got thrown to the wolves and I'm on my second term now, so I appreciate all of your guidance here.
We had to make sure that there was a question mark at the end of any sentence, right?
Yeah, I'm still not really great with the difference between questions and comments. But I did avoid mentioning the side yard setback in that past application we just looked at. Jim was so thoughtfully marking out setbacks. And I'm like, so we're not staying here till 9 o'clock tonight, and thank you. 10, 11. Aw.
Comments? No? Well, I'll sign off. Oh, I had one question. Listening to the last meeting, if I got this right, there was one item that had approval from the director out of the, I think it was the Benedict property. So I was not clear how that works, because then it sounds like pick and choose sort of. That's not the right term, but the director can approve certain items and then take forward the rest of the application to the commission. Is that how that works, or?
So on the Benedict, there was an aspect of a alternative parking compliance, which in our code allows for up to a 30% reduction, and that decision can be made by the director. So the director can make that choice, issue a notice of decision before it comes to Planning and Zoning Commission, and then it becomes part of their application, but not something that you review. There's also provisions that allow me, if they're asking for a parking reduction request, and I think that it should be decided by Planning and Zoning Commission or City Council, I can include that as their application request to be reviewed by P and Z or City Council and approved there. So there's a lot of different avenues, but there is a section in code that allows the director to approve parking reductions separately from the rest of the application.
Okay. All right, thank you. Well, this has been interesting and instructional, and I've learned an amazing amount. I mean, it's a privilege to be up here, and a lot of reading at times, but definitely worth the effort. And I've really gotten to know a lot of you all up here, and I really appreciate getting to know you all. And that's what I'll miss the most. I want to say that I think the staff is remarkable. And Hannah, I think you were hired on right as when we started that code. So we kind of started at the same time down this path and I,
You're not leaving, are you?
I hope not, because it would be a huge loss to the city. And I've told my partner Cindy, I said, I bet Hannah got straight A's because you are always prepared and on
Just one
top of
B.
things. One B, yeah. So, thank you. And Richard too. And welcome, Jose. You've got a great bunch of people to work with. And what's on the docket?
So I suppose first, a great thank you from staff as well. We're going to miss you. And now that you will have endless free time, we kind of expect you to be over there.
Yeah.
You now have the freedom to attend meetings.
Oh, great. I
As
can't wait.
as a small token of our appreciation, we have some city swag for you to take with you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Ah,
And you can always,
all right. Thank you.
no public comment.
What is, gotta check this out. Ooh, what is this? Oh, it's a drinking vessel. Look at that. Nice.
That would have been awesome.
Let's see, can I put margaritas in that?
I suppose now you can put whatever you want on Tuesday night.
And bring it.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, George. It has been a pleasure. And we have been here for about the same time. So
Yeah,
thank you for that reminder.
yeah.
And as far as planning and zoning appointments go, this is Chair Shaver's last meeting and also Commissioner Davies' last meeting as well. So we have a thank you for her. So she won't be continuing on Planning and Zoning Commission. A small clarification on planning and zoning appointments. Gregory and John, your current alternates, were both appointed to regular seats. So we do have a full commission, but we will be looking
Yes,
to
ma'am.
replace
Sorry.
both of our alternates. So if you have or know of interested people that you think would be good for this board, share how much fun we are. So we'll be putting out some advertising for that to fill those positions. Because starting in February, we will have no alternates. So you all
So
have to
you can't
attend all the
consider,
time.
wait, you're not gonna be here in February.
How many do we need for a quorum?
We only need 4 for a quorum, so
Oh, okay.
we're okay, and we'll look
I
to get
called it
those filled
first.
shortly.
Yeah.
I'll be here.
But you should also watch out. You could be appointed chair in absentia.
Yeah, while you're gone. I'll be like, huh.
I'll nominate her.
Ooh. I will second that. Uh-oh.
So with that, since we're talking about February, we do have 3 applications. They're going to be on the February docket. 2 sign variances. I know those are your favorite. And another normal variance. So it'll be the night of variances. And that is February 27th.
Okay.
And you've met Jose. We're incredibly happy to have him on board. So thank you for the welcome and great job tonight.
Yep.
And
Yeah, well done. Everybody's mic.
we do have a couple of things that are at the city council level that will likely be coming back to you guys as discussions where they're handing staff direction. One of those is short-term rentals and how those are handled. So we have that scheduled for the February 1st council meeting for discussion. And depending on where they go, that would come back to you for a possible code change. So more fun code changes headed your way.
Always evolving.
Yes. And just as an update to keep you informed of what you guys have already passed through and when city council is going to be seeing it. So we did Watkins gave you the upzoning and density bonus code changes a couple meetings ago. And council will be bringing that back up at a work session on February 15th to continue that discussion. That's all I got. Thanks so
Okay.
much.
Well, this meeting is adjourned. No.
I just got authority from Carl, if the chair